already raised the awareness on the 17 goals in educational settings anyway, even without specific reference to the SDGs. And it has also mobilizes action towards the achievement of the SDGs. But in addition to that, ESD now has to really work towards promoting critical and contextualized understanding of the SDGs within their learners' context and learning environments. This is particularly important because already within the 17 SDGs, there are sometimes tensions and issues cutting across different SDG goals. So we have to look at them critically and try to understand them within our learning context. So emphasis on education's role for the 17 SDGs is one of the key features. Next slide, please. And the second key feature is the focus on the big transformation. So as we can see, in order to achieve and address these defining challenges of our generation, such as climate change and loss of biodiversity, we can no longer only focus on transformation and actions of individuals, but also need to address the structural changes that are needed. This namely addresses, for example, structural changes in our economic systems, social systems, the way that we run our societies, and the core values, the underlying principles that we promote in our education systems. Also, we need to address the technological future and the recent developments in the technology that may or may not contribute to the sustainable development, and continue to promote critical thinking to make sure that learners have a keen eye to watch out for what is favorable and beneficial to our sustainable development goals in terms of the technologies that are being developed. So the second focus of our ESD for 2030 framework is the focus on these big transformations, the need for individuals to take action as citizens, but also to address the structural changes within education content and practice, as well as addressing technological future. Next slide, please. And the third feature of this new framework is the emphasis on member states' leadership. In the new framework, we have continuously emphasized the 5 priority action areas, which I'll explain later on, as focus areas for action. But this can no longer be done only by efforts of individual stakeholders, but really the member states, especially the governments, need to take the driver's seat to make the changes, make the necessary political decisions to enable societal transformation towards sustainability. So in this new framework, we emphasize on member states' leadership to make this happen, especially in consideration of various programs that UNESCO has, including Priority Africa, Priority Gender Equality, and also the specific needs of small island developing states. Next slide, please. And in particular, we would like to focus and call for action around these 5 priority action areas. These areas are the same as what we had for the Global Action Program period, because many of our stakeholders during the consultation for this new framework have said that these remain our top priorities for action. Namely, these include, first of all, advancing policy, making sure that ESD is integrated into education policies as well as sustainable development policies. Secondly, applying and making transformation in learning environments, including schools, as well as other learning institutions. And thirdly, building capacities of educators through relevant programs in pre-service and in-service training. Fourthly, empowering and mobilizing young people. And finally, accelerating local level actions to make the tangible transformation at local community levels. So around these 5 priority action areas, we would continue to mobilize actions and also promote interlinkages between these areas as well. Next slide, please. And in order to implement this new framework, we have identified also 6 strategies of implementation. First is on the country's implementing ESD at country level, which I will speak a little bit more at later stage. Second is creating and mobilizing partnership and collaboration through what we call ESD-Net, Inclusive Network, Global Network of Partners. Thirdly, on communicating for action, including promoting UNESCO Japan Prize on ESD, which will be awarded every 2 years from now on. And tracking issues and trends, the latest discussions on ESD in research, mobilizing resources, and monitoring the progress are important part of our implementation strategy. Next slide, please. And these discussions have been at the center of our recent UNESCO World Conference on ESD, which just finished last month in Berlin, Germany, as an online conference. So you can find further information of this conference in the links available. And this conference, I'm very pleased to share today some of the key results of this conference with you. Next slide, please. The conference was mobilized, it was postponed due to the pandemic 1 year, but still maintained the objective of mobilizing support for the implementation of this new roadmap and emphasizing the need and importance of ESD as the key enabler of the SDGs. We had over 2,800 invited participants from 161 countries, and also it was live streamed on YouTube, which invited more than 10,000 views on the day of the event. So if you would like to still watch these proceedings, they are available as recorded videos on UNESCO YouTube as well. Next slide, please. So with this great range of outcomes and outreach, we had some of the key outcomes of the conference. First of all, next please, the Berlin Declaration on ESD. So this declaration was drafted through a long process of drafting and consultation. And the declaration, some of the key words include that we commit that ESD is a foundational element of our education system and core curriculum component. And also, we commit to harness the power of ESD in redesigning our society and recognize that the time to learn and act for our planet is now. So with this strong commitment coming out, this Berlin Declaration hopefully will be the basic document that promotes forestry education in the next years to come. Next slide, please. And second part of the outcome would be the strong political commitments that came out from the conference. Around 80 ministers and vice ministers of education made commitments on their country's plans to take action for ESD for 2030 implementation, which would foster support for forestry education as well. Next slide, please. And so this is a little design drawing of the commitments that came out of this Berlin Declaration, which was also resonated by many participants and followers on social media as well. Next slide, please. So with this Berlin Declaration, the launch of the framework, launch of the roadmap, what are the next steps? Now the next steps, the first and foremost is engaging countries to participate and actively take the leadership on ESD for 2030. And to do this, we will organize regional meetings in 2022 and also global ESD-Net meeting in 2023 with a cycle of review every 2 years. So 2025 as a midterm review and 2030 final review of this ESD for 2030. Next slide, please. In particular, the core element of this implementation strategy is the country initiative on ESD, which calls for countries to implement and bring together all the ongoing efforts related to ESD, put them into one big network, one big umbrella initiative, and try to create synergies among them. So all the efforts that are being done around forest education, it should be related and brought together under this country initiative on ESD for 2030 so that they can be connected with any other relevant initiatives in ESD within that country. And by creating these synergies, we will be able to plan for additional new ideas and new activities within the country level. And UNESCO is ready to provide technical support for these preparatory stages. Next slide, please. So with this very short introduction of the framework, the roadmap, the Berlin conference, and the next steps on country initiatives, I would like to invite you all to join us for this global campaign, the hashtag Learn for Our Planet, and also to join us in our long-standing conversation in this LinkedIn group that has been newly opened to encourage the stakeholders to come together for a global conversation, to share their good practices, latest publications, and also group up in smaller groups to engage in a deeper conversation on how we can transform our education to address the current crisis. So with this, I would like to thank you for all your attention. Final slide, please. And if you have any further questions, please do not hesitate to contact us. There are some links available on the slide as well as in the chat for future references. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Ms. Won, for that very comprehensive overview of the ESD roadmap to 2030 and how it will be able to contribute to forest education. As we address forest education, we will, if you can use forest education to address the SDGs, then you are actually implementing education for sustainable development. And thank you also for bringing out the different areas of intervention, the policy, the whole institutional approach, capacity building, youth engagement, and solutions at local level. So we're now going to move to the next speaker, and I will kindly request the speakers to strictly keep to 8 minutes so that we can manage time well and also have time for interactions with the participants on this session. So allow me to introduce Mr. Christian Velez Ramirez. He's the General Coordinator of Environmental Education from the Amazon Rescue Center and Amazon Forever from Peru, that's from Latin America. So welcome, Christian.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Oh, great. Thank you. It's an honor to be here and share what we are doing here in the Peruvian Amazon to promote the ESD and the forest conservation. I'm going to talk about an educational program, a forest-centered educational program. It's called A Day in the Forest. Next slide, please. Let me give you a little bit of context. I am from ITTO city. ITTO is a city in the Peruvian Amazon. Actually, it's considered the largest city on earth that can be reached only by air or water. It's built basically between the river and the dense forest. But it serves as the country's gateway to the Amazon tourists, but unfortunately, it is home of generation of people who have very little connection to the ecosystem and to the river. Next one, please. In May 2017, we conducted a survey in Iquitos. In this study, we found that approximately 80% of Amazonian children were not familiar with the jungle in which they lived. And it is known as nature deficit children. And this information is really alarming, considering that one is unable to love, to value, or conserve that which one does not know. The people in Iquitos will play a critical role, positive or negative, in the health and survival of these ecosystems. Next one, please. On one hand, we know that children are not connected with our own nature. On the other hand, we are losing biodiversity. In 2019, Peru was in the top 5 of the most deforested countries in the world. So high population growth and anthropization of the rainforest has resulted in the decline of our biodiversity. Next one, please. That is why we decided to launch this organization, Amazon Forever. And we aim to promote the conservation of our Amazonian ecosystem, particularly a kind of ecosystem that is a white sand forest. And we want to conserve it through the environmental education, positive contact with nature, and wildlife rescue. We strive to engage people at 3 levels: knowledge, emotion, and behavior. Next one, please. Why the white sand forest? So what are the white sand forests? It is also known as varillas. Now, this is a rare and fragile ecosystem. And actually, less than 1% of the Amazon is white sand forest. But it is there is a lot of endemic species in this ecosystem, very specialized species, as you can read there, like trees, reptiles, birds, only live here in this kind of ecosystem. Next one, please. But unfortunately, we are losing this kind of forest. These forests are disappearing at an alarming rate due to the fact that the white sand is one of the only construction materials available in the area for building. So it is very important to take actions to conserve these ecosystems. Next one. So far, we are conserving 11 hectares of white sand forest. It is in ITTO City as the Amazon Forever Biopark. In this biopark, we include forests, trails, different areas for educating our visitors, for educating the children that participate in our programs. Next one, please. And one of our programs is A Day in the Forest. It is a forest center educational program. It's a 3-hour experiential learning program for local children. And we launched this program in 2018 as a pilot, and we were really inspired by our participants' excitement and curiosity. Next one, please. This program includes different activities, for instance, multi-sensory games with natural materials. We use the seeds, the leaf, to create a whole experience. Next one, please. Also, one of the activities are the interactive storytelling, in which the children play the role of key species, and they experience the animals' point of view in conflict with human beings. Next one, please. Treasure hunt, where children use a forest map to find sounds, to find leaves, to find trees. We encourage them to use all the sense to discover and explore our forest. Next one, please. They can also find different challenges along the trails that makes the experience really memorable and really funny for them. Education should be funny as well. Next one, please. So far, we have more than 7,000 children have participated in our program. And the most important is that most of these children had never visited the forest before. So this was the first experience for them in the natural environment, but a real connection with our forest, with our environment. Next one. We know that positive interactions between the natural world and the children is very important. It's key, and it is actually extremely important for intellectual, social, physical development. And we think that our program is a very simple, effective, and significant way to connect children with nature, because we wanted to know our forests in order they can become the guardians of the Amazon in the future. So that's why we decided to launch this program to conserve our forests and also to educate the future generation of the Amazonian leaders. Next one, please. Thank you very much for your attention and your invitation.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Christian, for that very interesting presentation and also for managing time very well. And his presentation just shows the importance also of education, especially in urban areas. When you look at that they have so many kids out there who have never been to a forest and they don't appreciate nature. And congratulations that you have at least 25 acres of land in a city whereby the children can be able to learn, to come and learn and benefit. I think that is really excellent, and thank you so much. So allow me to introduce, thank you, well, my pleasure. Allow me to introduce our next speaker, Ms. Kaija Saramaki, Chairman of the Board of UNESCO-led Association. This is a global network and an online network for sustainable development. Welcome, Ms. Kaija.
Okay, I think you can hear me now.
Yes, we.
Okay, great. Yes, so thank you for the invitation to speak in this conference. And like Madam Sipora said, that I'm Kaija Saramaki from Environment Online, UNESCO-led Association here in Finland. And I will have a few examples of what kind of initiatives or things we are doing in ENO at the moment. So the next slide, please. Very shortly about the organization of ENO. So we have the office here in Joensuu in Finland, eastern part of Finland, and all the activities, they are voluntary based, and we have a wide network of country coordinators around the world. And the country coordinators then take care of activities in their own countries. They also spread awareness of the activities and act as a link between ENO network and schools and governments, ministries, local ministries, local governments, and other NGOs and actors in the field. Next one, please. Here's just a few activities. What we do is everything is related to sustainable development and environmental education. So we have different kind of activities, campaigns on tree planting, ENO Art, which is a recycled art competition and campaign, ENO Weather Weeks, where the students in schools, they gather weather information for 1 or 2 weeks, and then they share it with other schools around the world. Energy saving issues, different kind of events, and then these networking activities. So we are linking schools in different parts of the world with other schools, and then they can have some joint sessions between 2 schools, 3 schools, 4 schools on certain topics of sustainable development, and discuss how the things are going in their country and how it's going in the other country and so on. And then community projects, of course, and externally funded projects as well. Next one, please. A few words about the tree planting days. It's our oldest and most known activity, I guess, since 2004, and over 10,000 schools in about 160 countries have participated so far. We have 2 annual days for planting. So one is on or around the International Day for Biological Biodiversity, and the other on or around the International Day of Peace in September. And of course, because the environments are very different in different countries, ENO tree planting days can be organized whenever it is suitable in each country. And these are mainly done with schools. schools and their teachers, but also with the communities around. Next one, please. Then these community engagement examples. We partnered up with a Climate Blocks project here in Joensuu last year, and we facilitated the participation of the local school, preschool, kindergartens, and the whole community to plan a park, a forest park, on a sound barrier between the main road and the suburb in a residential area here. We had different kind of workshops with the different age groups, and this I think is from the preschoolers. The picture here, they were molding with Play-Doh about what they wanted in the park. There were some flowers and trees and playthings, snowmen, and benches and that kind of thing. So we had these workshops for the different target groups to get their ideas of what they wanted to do. And then in September last year, we had the planting event where we had about 450 school children planting trees, and then also about 50 members of the community planting trees as well. Next one, please. Then also in the briefing notes for this breakout session, there was about these partnerships with different actors. We have a very strong partnership with the city of Joensuu, where we are located, and we provide environmental education to schools in Joensuu in primary and secondary school, so from 1st grade to 9th grade. And then also a little bit higher up as well, high school, but not so much. And within the partnership with the city of Joensuu, also some climate and global education partnerships. So when we have groups from other countries coming to see how the schools in Joensuu work and operate, we sometimes go and tell about the partnership with the city of Joensuu and sustainable development issues as well. This picture is from tree planting just a few weeks ago here in Joensuu, where we had one whole school coming to plant trees in a forest area. And the next one, please. And then in addition to that, we also participate a lot with forestry actions and other sustainable development actions in Joensuu and in Finland and around the world as well. So in Finland, they were doing these regional forestry program plans. Last year, we were participating in that as well. We collaborate a lot with higher education institutes, with universities and universities of applied sciences, with project work for the students, practical training placements, thesis work for the students, and so on. And then, of course, other forest actors. And collaboration with the North Karelia Biosphere Reserve, sorry, there's a word missing there. So North Karelia Biosphere Reserve, which is part of the UNESCO Biosphere Actions also, the Foundation for Environmental Education, 4-H, and different kind of other NGOs. And also we use culture and media for different kind of awareness raising activities as well. Next one, please. Oh, we're already at the end. Sorry, I was rushing a bit to be sure that I'm on time. More information you can find from our website and also from Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and then you can reach me and my colleagues through these email addresses here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kaja, for that very excellent presentation of your network. You brought in a lot of issues. We see action projects with children, we see joint projects, networking, we see teacher education, building on world environmental days like the International Biodiversity Days, there's community engagement, and also thematic action like your climate action. I think that's a very excellent project. And I want to invite participants, please keep posting your questions and comments on the chat box. We'll have time at the end to go through them, and also the speakers will be able to respond to some of your questions. So allow me now to introduce our fourth speaker, Mr. Satish Awate, Program Director at the Center for Environmental for environmental education, Central Region Cell, CEE focal point for biodiversity conservation education programs. They work on strengthening environmental education and communication interventions towards sustainable development. So welcome, Mr. Satish. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Greetings to everyone from wherever you are watching and listening to. It's nice to start this session with very concrete examples of local educational initiatives, various methods. So what I plan to share with you is how that priority area number 5 of localizing looks like at a regional and national level by sharing our experiences from India. Next slide, please. So I work with Center for Environment Education, which is a center of excellence and was established way back in 1984 and has a network of regional, state and project offices throughout India. And it is among the pioneering organization to introduce various pedagogies, do capacity building program, and develop a range of learning resources in different languages for as diverse country like India is. So I won't take much of a time to describe forest education and larger environment education landscape of India. Just quickly, apart from constitutional and policy provisions, importantly, the recent one, National Education Policy, we have got all the right things in place at policy level. So it is critical for us to focus on implementation side and in enhancing quality. So throughout the country, we have a range of national and state government initiatives, schemes and programs, as well as large number of NGO and institutional network, as well as in other parts of the world. Next slide, please. So to share some key learnings from Center for Environment Education, so 3 decades experience. The first I would like to highlight is that of contextualizing. Often international frameworks and programs are left to trickle down to the grassroots. And that's not helping us as our experience goes. We need to acknowledge that all the issues, all the challenges and all the motivations for forest conservation or ESD or climate education, they all exist on ground. So we need articulation and program design locally, and then trying to meaningfully align that articulation and programs with international frameworks and programs like what we are talking about. So this is all about strengthening bottom-up processes. Of course, I mean, there is a lot of value to offer in top-down process as well. So, but since a lot of quality inputs are available from top-down approach, what we really need to strengthen is bottoms-up approach. What can help such a bottoms-up approach? Having regional and sub-national databases, because often the forest conservation or species conservation, because we don't have regional and sub-national databases, and international indices such as Red Data Book often miss out on many locally important species and ecosystem challenges. One example is the picture which I have used on this slide is of Iphigenia indica. So in absence of such databases, people often tend to ignore issues and challenges which are quite substantial when it comes to the local and regional levels. So we need to have such databases, and we should have reasons to celebrate more local achievements like this one, which we recently found in a biodiversity park developed by an indigenous community. The second aspect is integrated biocultural landscape approach. Unfortunately, we continue to see attempts of separating cultural landscape from natural landscape and designing programs. So this is and this also goes with various divides which we need to bridge: urban-rural divide, rich-poor, tribal, non-tribal. Um, and this is a sort of a classical problem, but at least in case of India, and I believe in case of many tropical countries, this classical challenge still remains strong, and we need to have appropriate pedagogies and program designs and prioritization to address these, because most of the urban, peri-urban sections of the society still continue to believe that forest-dwelling indigenous communities are the main threats to the forest, and not themselves, who are consuming so many products which are indirectly contributing to forest disappearance. So how to make this happen? That in education, if inquiry-based critical thinking is promoted, and we come up with learning activities. These days, we are increasingly battling the simplistic narratives and feel-good approaches, such as numbers of plants planted, or water body desilting or deepening. Um, so we need, our educational program need to address at one hand these classical challenges as well as these emerging challenges as well. Um, and in context of climate education, it is what is heartening to see is educational activities are integrating forest products and looking at water and energy nexus. But what we need to also take into account and integrate is people and health into this nexus understanding. And the lessons from ongoing COVID pandemic are only pushing us in that direction to deepen our understanding about importance of ecological integrity, and more so that of forest as ecosystems. Next slide, please. To strengthen this bottoms-up approach, I mean, it is imperative to develop a formal and non-formal partnership. These two quick examples, let me share with you. One left-hand side is an initiative where we worked with about 200 schools from northern Western Ghats. Western Ghats, as most of you must be knowing, that are part of UNESCO's World Natural Heritage Site, as well as biodiversity hotspot of global significance. So this initiative essentially started with schools, went on developing partnership with the local communities, NGOs, and research institutions to take on something which no formal research institution had done before in this globally important landscape. That to actually map the genetic diversity of Mangifera indica, that is mango, and were able to study more than 200 varieties with unique name, and further scientific exploration confirm that these variations also hold true at genetic level as well. So this is one example, and the second example, the picture on right hand side is of a document which is People's Biodiversity Register. That is something India, through a nationwide legal instrument of Biodiversity Act, has made mandatory for all the levels of local governance institutions to do inventory of local biodiversity resources. And this document captures our 10 years association with the indigenous and disadvantaged communities who, after 40 years of struggle, were able to establish rights over their ancestral lands, and are doing very interesting work towards strengthening their livelihoods as well as conservation. And this institution, this effort, when CE partner with the local community and local organization, by design we brought in formal education institutes, that's schools and colleges, and who specifically looked after documenting biodiversity, especially in the agroforestry zones, and also exploring food diversity as theme. So these are two different case examples where we started at different points, but ultimately in one case organically, and in another case by design developed formal and non-formal partnership. Next slide, please. So going ahead, what are the key action points we see even at the national level? So critical and systems approach. So this photograph is of plantations on Pune Hills. Pune is a city where I live in and talking to you right now. And since last decade or so, many citizen groups have actively contributed towards greening of these hills. But the problem is they are referring to the colonial era understanding about the ecology and ecosystem, which at one point of a time told that it is actually the human presence, the burning and grazing, which degraded original forest, and that's how we have degraded. So most of these community groups, and including some academia also, are still referring to that old school and trying to restore, and in that process actually ending up harming the biodiversity richness. And Pune Hills over past 100 years have lost more than 80 plant species because of this unscientific approach. And this is only plant species. We don't even know how many dependent reptiles and small amphibian species we have lost in. And there is advanced scientific understanding which exists, which more than makes it clear.
Sorry, Mr. Awate, to interrupt. Please try to fast track and wind up because of time. Sorry.
Sure. So there is evidence to say that even before arrival of human beings, these areas were open ecosystems with grasslands and very thin tree population. So we need to inform these programs, and formal non-formal partnerships have that potential, wherein scientist communities, educators come together, inform their decisions and program designs. When it comes to the participation, it is an important need that we have able educators who are trained to facilitate various stakeholders, address the power imbalances among the stakeholders and also within the stakeholders, say for example communities, because communities are not homogeneous entities. Next slide, please. I think that's the last slide. And for both formal and non-formal spaces, appropriate curriculum design, putting learners and communities at the center, acknowledging the experiential and traditional knowledge they hold as the cultural capital for enabling them to successfully participate. Benchmarking and measurement of the learning outcomes is very important. Since last 5 years, we were able to do that at a regional level. and were able to test the effectiveness of learning pedagogies and learning resources which we developed. So for this, at a formal institution level, we see there is a need to shift from instrumentality to active participation, because schools, college students are often seen as freely available labor for various plantation activities, if to use that term. But we need to approach school and college students as active learners, where they can not only contribute to the conservation actions, but also there are important learnings to be achieved. And in terms of a content, with additions of green economy perspectives, pathways towards it, and engaging with public politics, we can strengthen this bottoms-up approach. And with community exchange at a global level, I'm sure that we will be able to establish the links as well as contributions to almost 16 out of 70 SDGs directly. So thank you. Next slide, you can just put it. Thanks for listening. And as a parting message, let me just say that what we need is handprints beyond individual actions, as encapsulated in Sustainable Development Competencies Framework by UNESCO. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Awate, for that very comprehensive presentation, focusing on localizing action at community level. And you brought out quite a number of issues, having an integrated landscape approach that also builds bridges the divides, for example, urban, rural, poor, rich, and building on key skills. And you've also emphasized on partnerships. You've also brought out the issue of COVID, having a systems approach. And towards the end, it's very important that this is a presentation that has touched on monitoring and evaluation, and also bringing in the aspect of green economies, even as we move as we look forward to a post-COVID world. Countries are talking about how can we have a green and just economic recovery. Thank you very much. Yeah, so so allow me now to, you could stop, you've stopped screen sharing. Allow me now to introduce our final speaker before we get into discussions, and that is Mr. Emmanuel Niyabikoze. He's the founder and CEO of Greening Burundi. He's an Earth Charter young leader, and he leads an impressive tree planting campaign. So welcome, Mr. Emmanuel. The floor is yours. Please go ahead, Emmanuel. We have unmuted you.
Okay, thank you very much for this great invitation. First of all, I could present myself. Emmanuel Niyabikoze, the founder of Greening Burundi, which is a non-profit organization of young people involving in the environment field by implementing the free activities divided into free programs. It is multiplying and tree planting. And the second one is education, divided into two programs also. There is Green Thursday, in which we gather people in our community to exchange about environment. And also we
Emmanuel,
create...
Emmanuel, can you speak louder?
Okay.
Yeah.
And now it's okay? Okay.
Yes, please go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So I was saying that we have educational programs, which is Greening School Club, in which we are creating the school clubs in order to give school children, students at universities to learn more about how to preserve environment and existing forests. And also we have option of fighting against pollution by organizing cleanups. Next slide. Next slide. Okay. We are implementing the greening Burundi activities, multiplying and planting trees because Burundi has lost more than 50% of its forest cover. So that's why greening Burundi is implementing tree planting activities here in Burundi. So, but to plant trees or to protect forests isn't enough. If we reforest land without changing people's mentality, because we are those ones destroying the forests, our effort will be worthless. That's why education focused to preserving the existing forest and the new afforestation is a key of saving our planet. Greening Burundi environmental education aims to increase knowledge about the key roles that environment and forest protection plays in sustaining life on our planet. The program of Green First Day and creating greening school clubs in the community and at different schools in the universities is to reconnect with our forest heritage and instill in children on a sense of ownership over the environment. Educating about the environment for sustainable development is one of the privileged way that allow us to hope that our children, grandchildren, or great grandchildren can enrich a healthy planet and live there flourish. Regarding to environment and forest education, for a healthy lifestyle, people should be positively educated about the environment in order to develop an awareness and a sense of participation, and to help them acquire knowledge about ecological principles aimed at balancing individual health and that of society and in the environment. Environment education on forests for sustainable development mainly aims at the following objectives. Is to help people become aware of the environmental, social, and economic problems they are facing. Encourage populations to acquire fundamental knowledge to better understanding the causes, consequences, and the solutions to be implemented in order to hope to live in a better world. Develop in the population a sense of worries, a critical sense, and a willingness to attractive for the improvement and protection of living environments and the global environments and forests. Support people so that they acquire the skills necessary to identify and resolve environmental and social and economic problems. Give people the means to take concrete action at all levels to resolve environment, social and economic problems. So the following activities must be implemented in order to stimulate interest in maintaining a balanced performed environment, in acquiring skills reflecting consent for protection and awareness to the forests. Local authorities are also involved in the designation of green spaces for relaxation and for play areas. To give information, to make awareness, to educate children, inspire them very early on environmental responsibility, guaranteeing them health afterwards. We have to encourage active engagement in collaboration with others to protect the forest and solve the pollution problems. Train and teach practical habits and skills to achieve the goal, including utilities, material reuse, and recycle. We must make local authorities aware at the importance of creating as many green spaces, afforestation, protect the existing forests, and play areas as possible and save biodiversity. Education on forests and biodiversity is a core pillar of making our world sustainable and better by saving our future. The earth belongs to everyone, yet we can only protect and care for it by joining forces. Environmental quality is a partnership of schools and local communities united to achieve common goals, such as environmental and social development, the development of environmental awareness among citizens for sustainability. Forest education is a veritable tool in achieving sustainable development, especially in this area of mass deforestation, rising from poverty and to ideal development. So from education point of view question is how to teach the multiple use and the benefits of the forest. Education needs to impact critical things regarding the whole spectrum of forest use and conservation and the trade.
Sorry, Emmanuel. Sorry to interrupt. Our time is spent, so I think you need to just summarize, wrap up, because we now need to. Yeah. Our time is almost spent. We only have a few more minutes left, and we still need to engage with the audience.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. I was saying about how everyone must take action and save existing forests. As a Greening Burundi, we are trying to protect existing forests because Burundi has suffered from forest destruction. So that's why we are increasing forest cover by planting trees, create new afforestation, protect the existing forests in Burundi, because if nothing is done, Burundi will lose more than 70, is the report of United Nations, 70% of its existing forest actually. So that's why we are involving youth. We are youth must take action, must be aware of their future in order to make our world better and sustainable.
Excellent, excellent, excellent.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
Excellent, Emmanuel. Thank you so much for bringing up the role of youth and the great work you're doing in terms of taking action and leading a greening initiative in Burundi. And we believe that you're going to make a big contribution towards increasing the tree forest cover. So we're now moving to a session whereby I'm going to ask some questions to the speakers. And because we don't have time, please, just 1 minute for you to give a response so that we can quickly also look at the questions on the chat box so that you can respond to the participants. So I'm going to pose the first question to Ms. Kaija and Satish in that order. So Ms. Kaija, you respond to this question, and Satish, and you have only 1 minute, 60 seconds. How can we better promote partnerships between schools and local communities for more effective and efficient sustainable forestry efforts and programs? Over to you, Ms. Kaija. 1 minute. I don't know if she's still on the call. Maybe Mr. Satish, you can take the question. How can we better promote partnerships between schools and local communities for more effective and efficient, sustainable forestry efforts and programs? Thank you.
Yeah, so quickly, couple of things to start with from enabling policy environment. So be it educational policies or policies related to, say, forest and biodiversity conservation, as well as legal frameworks, creating tangible stakes of local communities in forest conservation by way of providing land and user rights to them. Second, for the formal education space, be it schools, colleges, or research areas, it is important to acknowledge the significance of traditional and experiential knowledge which community has to contribute. So it is all question of creating meaningful value for such partnership, and that process will be unique to each place. And as a last point, I think it is very important that our educators are capacity build to have these partnerships implemented in meaningful way by designing learning activities which are habitat linked and also using community as learning resources. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Satish. So Ms. Kaija, do you want to take 1 minute to respond to that?
Yes, thank you. I wasn't able to unmute myself there earlier. Yes, I think Satish mentioned very good points already. Some of them I'm thinking the same. So acting together is one issue, that you don't do things by yourself. You have others around you. You have companies. You have other NGOs. You have other educational institutes. So you can team up with those. Then also, I think the social interaction is one thing that needs to be remember, because the teachers, they know the geography, they know the biology, they know the different things of sustainable development. What is the extra thing that you as an NGO are bringing to the table at schools, for example? What is that extra thing that you are giving to them? Social interaction is one of the things. So for example, ENO, we can utilize our whole network all around the world and bring also this multicultural and international environment into the discussion of sustainable development, for example. But the main point, I think, is act together, cooperate with others while doing some partnership activities with the schools and local administration. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kaija and also Mr. Satish. So I'm going to pose a second question to Christian Ramirez. 1 minute. I hope, Christian, you're online. How can organizations integrate forest education into ESD programs and perspectives, intergenerational dialogues, community planning, and decision-making processes? The role of organizations. Thank you. Over to you. Christian, are you online, or do we need to unmute you?
Yes, I am. Thank you for your question. Well, I think that we have to start by recognizing or acknowledge that we all depend on the forest. It might sound like cliche, or as we work in the conservation or environmental field, it's maybe usual for us to recognize that. But think about, for instance, the healthy sector. For instance, in the Amazon provides a lot of medicine plants that could be used in that sector. Or think about the schools or children. How could they integrate it? The forest conserve the headwaters that are water source for the big cities. If we start thinking about how the forest impact in our daily lives, I think we can integrate it in different areas for different sectors, for different institutions. But I think that we have to build that base, and from that start building different methods. I mean, like policies, a common agenda. But I think that the key is people. We have to start recognizing that. We have to acknowledge how the forest impacts in our daily life.
Thank you very much, Christian, for that question. So I think we have seen Emmanuel spoke quite well on how young people can contribute to addressing forest issues with the example that he presented happening in Burundi. So we have very few minutes left, and I think we will move to the plenary. Anybody who has a question, you can raise your hand and we can be able to listen so that you can interact with the speakers. So do we have questions from the participants? You can raise your hand. I'm trying to see, and the co-hosts can also assist in unmuting. Questions? I remember, of course, I saw a question that was connecting to Ms. Won on examples of programs from Africa, and I think I would be happy to share that, although we do not have much time on this platform. But I'm happy to share some of the work that we are doing with ESD, and also Ms. Won, I'm sure you could be having some examples. I can see one hand raised. Please go ahead, Birino Melo, please go ahead.
Sí, buenos días. Muy interesante las exposiciones, especialmente de lo que estaba haciendo, no recuerdo el nombre de la persona que expuso, pero al respecto de esa exposición, yo podría sugerir que para tener una mejor visión y sobre todo el fortalecimiento del sector forestal y de la educación forestal, sugiero que se incluya en los planes curriculares de los estudiantes de nivel básico, o sea, es decir, de nivel primario y secundario, en el plan curricular aspectos generales o básicos de la educación forestal y de la cultura forestal, para que ya desde pequeños o desde jóvenes se vayan formando con esa visión y sobre todo con cultura de conservación, con cultura forestal y cultura ambiental. Porque muchos jóvenes llegan ya a estudiar en la universidad y no conocen mucho sobre estos temas. Entonces, sería importante que se incluya para que desde pequeños vayan viendo y vayan analizando que es muy importante la conservación de los bosques, la conservación de los recursos forestales y sobre todo la conservación de la biodiversidad, porque eso es muy bueno para las futuras generaciones. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much for that contribution on the issue of having curricular plans that reinforce forest education. I think that is very important. Anybody would like to contribute to that in 1 or 2 minutes as we wrap up the session? Yes, Satish, please go ahead. I saw you raised your hand, but through the...
Yeah. So quickly, it is not a question of either or, but as a policy measure and followed by subsequent actions, there is, I think, unanimity globally that we need forest education, or for that matter, environment education or ESD at large, at all the levels of learning. And it is only possible through developing age-appropriate curriculum and pedagogies for that. So yeah, I mean, it's point well taken that we need to start early. So it's not either or, we need that at all levels of learning.
Thank you very much. I think we have 3 more minutes for this session. And I think we'll just be wrapping up. First of all, I want to thank you all for really creating time to join this session. It has come at the end of the day when people are a bit tired, but thank you so much for your engagement. And we've come up, we've seen several presentations, And one of the key things that I'm seeing coming up out of this is an emphasis on policy, the policy environment, having a conducive policy environment. So I think with one of the priority areas for ESD in this new decade being advancing policy, we have a role to see how can we make sure that we mainstream forest education as part of our education with the in schools and all institutions of learning. Then work engagement at community level. Let us remember the indigenous communities that live in those forests and the importance of having them being part and parcel of forest education, and also looking at the socio-economic benefits that they can have even as we tell them to conserve forests. So a holistic education that also addresses their social economic needs. Capacity building is critical. We've seen, let us not forget the children that live in cities, and let us try to conserve also the green spaces, like the example we saw from Peru, and the added value of social interaction, being in nature areas. I think that really helps. So thank you all so much. Thank you to all the speakers for creating time to be part of this process. Thank you, UNESCO, for leading on this and for bringing the importance of ESD in achieving forest education and achieving the SDGs. I also want to appreciate the organizers of this conference, AF4 and NF4, FAO and NF4. And I also want to appreciate we had our silent rapporteur, Ms. Joy Chiadika from Youth UNESCO Climate Action Network. Thank you very much. And we look forward to receiving the summary of this session alongside other conference reports. Thank you so much. And I wish you all a great evening. And we look forward to seeing you tomorrow in the session that we'll have in the morning. Thank you and bye.
So Sham, over to you to close the session. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Khalil. And may I take this opportunity to thank everyone, all the fantastic speakers that we have had throughout the day, and also to all the fabulous participants and for all your wonderful insights that you have fed in through the chats, if not personally. In addition, of course, there are also all our support team members, whom we don't see, as Thomas said in group 3.1, but are the invisible ghosts who make things happen for us. Just a very quick reminder to everyone, please do join us for the final day tomorrow. It starts pretty early in the morning at 8:30 Central European Time. All of you are encouraged to join the breakout sessions at least 10 minutes earlier, just in case there is, some issue with either connections or assignments to groups that you wish to attend. I think that might be it, Khalil. Am I right?
Yeah.
Sorry, Khalil has just put up the agenda for day 3 for the closing plenary. Yeah. So if all of you would like to take a look, and please don't miss the last day, because some exciting things are also happening during the closing plenary tomorrow. So the breakout groups will run from 8:30 until 11:30 Central European Time, and we are back in plenary again at noon. Sorry, at 1 p.m. Central European Time until 2:30. So I wish all of you a pleasant morning, afternoon, evening, night, wherever you are. And again, a huge thank you for joining us at ICFI 2021. Thank you all.